Welcome to We Talk, where we talk about any and everything as a family.
As a family. And today we're going to be talking about a story from the 60s that has influenced the way that Americans, and I guess people in general, view sugar. And so basically, back in, I believe it was 67, the Sugar Research Foundation, they paid for a study to be done. They paid like
$50,000.
Okay, so actually, it's $50,000 in today's money. So
Yeah.
it was like $6,500 back then to some. Oh, yeah, I know that's to some Harvard scientists, I believe, and they basically wanted a study done that influenced the way that people viewed the connection between sugar and coronary heart disease. And so they had the researchers cherry pick these studies that minimized sugar's role in heart disease and maximized saturated fat's role in it. And so because of that, people think that, sugar is not nearly as bad as it really is, and people think that saturated fat is worse than it really is. And to me, that's evil. Like that's that's them like slowly poisoning the country, right?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Yeah.
It's treason.
Like,
So what I had when I looked into it.
Just kidding, it's not treason.
Okay, so you discussed how they wanted them to switch the blame to saturated fats as opposed to sugar, but like in reality, the calories from sugars are more detrimental to heart health than the calories from the starchy carbohydrates.
mm, yeah, like it's immoral, right? Like it's
Yeah, that's a morality issue.
to where they're.
I mean, but that's kind of on the same lines as like the tobacco thing. I mean.
That is definitely a morality issue too.
Oh yeah, that's what I know. But when you say the word sugar, it doesn't sound as bad as tobacco.
And a lot of people believe that because of this 1967 study that was published, like that's why America has such an obesity problem now, just because of that slight shift in perspective of us seeing sugar as not that bad. And what's interesting to me is that stuff like this is still happening, actually. Just recently, Coca-Cola actually paid to have some studies done to where they were showing that soda doesn't play as big of a factor in childhood obesity as it really does.
Are you sure it wasn't Pepsi?
No, I'm definitely sure it was Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Also,
I'm sorry.
like what you said about the tobacco thing, about how they do more tobacco advertising in low-income areas. There wasn't real knowledge about how tobacco actually affects people, stuff like that with the tobacco industry. There's stuff like that with opioids. It ranges from things like candy, where people are paying for studies that there was candy people paying for studies that say that children who eat candy tend to weigh less than children who don't. All the way up to there's not any opioid knowledge until recently because no one cared enough to actually put it in, and now all these people have addictions and are dying off of overdoses because they get turned on to heroin from taking a
just like their pain medicine if their back hurts or something.
Yeah. From morphine to heroin.
So it's all some big company trying to sell something, and them essentially saying like, all right, well, you know, we're gonna sell as much as possible at the expense of
Everybody else.
everyone else.
Personally, I feel like that should be illegal. Like cherry picking studies and doing stuff like that, that is immoral practice to me. And
That's
I feel
such
like,
a pivotal point of consumerism, though. Like in our country.
yeah, but if you're gonna
founded
sell
on-
something, I feel like you should be
Yeah,
honest about the effects. Because
Well,
what's the
a
difference
lot of things
between
wouldn't be-
what's
Well,
the
you know
difference
what?
between you selling candy and then your child is obese? Is obese and has diabetes from too much sugar, than someone overdosing over time. It's the same effect, just on different spectrums.
But my thing is, you know what? Like I agree with you. People should just be honest about the advertisement. Because to me, it would be no different than, you know, the medicine commercials that go off, and at the end they be like, you could die from this, that, the third, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But people are still gonna take the medicine. So just be honest about the sugar, and then, you know, give people a choice as to. I mean,
Well,
people are still gonna eat the sugar, believe me. You know, but they should
Especially
be
now,
honest.
ain't nobody gonna stop buying
Right.
Coca-Cola.
Right. So I mean.
I don't know. Like manipulations like this, I feel like they're so tied to the core of our country that if everybody was honest, our country would look like way different. Like if anybody who was selling anything was honest, like could you imagine how different things would be?
It's not about like this sounds bad, but it's not like 100% being honest all the time. It's like when there are ill effects, you should be warned about them, because down the line, if you're telling somebody that like, oh, this doesn't do as bad as it really does, like sugar isn't as bad as it really is, that is dangerous to their health and the health of the entire country. Like you said, they're slowly poisoning the country. So what's the difference? Like,
I think that
it's like me poisoning the water supply. I'm not going to poison the water supply, but
We're going to jail.
it's like the same thing. Like you're slowly. Wait, aren't they poisoning the water supply? Isn't there like fluoride in the water supply or something, and that's like dangerous?
I think it helps your teeth, to be honest. The fluoride in the water supply.
I feel like fluoride levels, like it wants to.
I'm sure once they get to a certain level, it's bad for you. But hey, man,
We just poisoned.
like
Used to.
what? Man, I think I read a story recently about some city where they stopped putting fluoride in the water supply, or they were taking that out or whatever, and like everybody just started getting cavities, and everybody was pissed,
Mm,
like because you know the fluoride helped fight off cavities.
mm.
But
Okay. Maybe not fluoride then. I don't know. I feel like I've heard something like that before.
I'm very curious. I believe the person who was at the Sugar Research Foundation who like paid for these studies, I think his name was John Hickson, and I'm just curious if he let his children and the family members close to him, if he let them have sugar, because
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
if he's like, if he's trying to get, you know, America as a whole to eat a bunch more sugar, and then he's telling his own family like, nah, no sugar, no sugar.
Right.
Like, like, how does that guy sleep at night?
That would be
Like-
very, interesting.
But I feel like we're really trying to put we're trying to see things from the perspective that they weren't like created with, right? Like we're all relatively moral people. Like we wouldn't want to poison the country like wholesale.
No, we wouldn't.
Wholesale
But-
poison.
The people who were doing this, they were snakes. They just really didn't care about people. Like they cared.
About money.
Like John Hickson, he was very excited because he thought that if people were afraid to eat fat, then the sugar consumption rate would increase by 30%. And he was excited about
This
that.
was, for him, an investment.
Like
He paid that much money back then so that he can make so much more money
In the
in the
future.
future.
Mhm.
and it wasn't even that much money. It was $6,500.
So he made an investment at the expense of everyone who was in the country at that time and everyone who is alive today, because we all just been eating sugar. And now they're like, sugar is really bad. And we're like,
think about it. That investment paid off though, because it worked. It successfully
yeah, but at what
influenced
expense?
the narrative.
I mean, did you mention the bladder cancer?
My thing, oh,
Because
hold
that,
on.
yeah, because when I was reading it, it said, not only was it the heart, the effects on the heart, but it, possibly bladder cancer.
What I would be interested in, and I don't know if they could do this, but like the correlation between people who've been diagnosed with diabetes since that like research study was put out there that sugar isn't as bad, because diabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 1 is like you're born with it, type 2 comes from too much sugar in the bloodstream and not having enough like insulin to fight that off. Do your pancreas doing some wonky stuff.
I mean, I feel like, well, okay, I don't know if legal action could be taken, because I think all of the people who were like involved in this are dead. Most of them are dead for sure. I don't know, maybe all of them.
No, it was like 67.
Yeah, that was 67.
How long ago was that?
Goodness,
Over 50 years.
that's great.
That is not that long ago.
But you have to think that the people back then were adults. Like they weren't born then. Like they were adults in their careers.
Yeah, they might be in their 30s, 40s.
So
maybe 80s.
they'd be 80s or 90s now.
Lock them up.
No, they died from sugar because they was eating it.
So like they're dead. So nothing can really be done. The Sugar Research Foundation is now the Sugar Association.
They have to change the name so people wouldn't start gunning for them.
It's funny because I used to pride myself on being a sugar bear.
And now I have a bad heart.
You should have been a sugar. You should have been a saturated fats bear.
Well, I've actually, cut down my sugar intake. Especially during the week. I try to limit my desserts to the weekend. So, I got a weekend
It's
habit.
a good diet. You should.
Yeah.
How much your weekend diet?
Weekend, yeah.
So, I don't know.
So what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. This whole thing was orchestrated by evil people who didn't care about other people, and because of that, they succeeded in what they wanted to do. They successfully changed the narrative to steer our country as a whole, like our perspective on sugar and saturated fat, and now we don't know what's what, and we're just now, I think it was 2016 that this all came out, that this happened, but we're just now learning what's really true. So they're bad guys.
Before I come to my final thought, I have a question. Has there been any statement given by the Sugar Association?
They actually did, and they they just said that that morality was different back then, and that I think they said that what was done back then has actually helped with studies now, and it was basically just some BS, saying oh yeah, we made that mistake, but we learned from it, and
Let's just move on.
Kinda.
Let's just move on, even though we've all been conditioned to use sugar now.
That was the Sugar Research Foundation. We're the Sugar Association.
New year, new me.
So.
Okay, my final statement is that the Sugar Association, no, they ain't got good morals. Or the Sugar Research Foundation, I don't know the morals now. But back then, their morals were trash. He decided to make an investment at the expense of the lives of everyone, and back then and now. And to me, that is a crime, because you don't know how many people have died from misinformation about sugar, whether it be from heart disease or diabetes or any other complication that could revolve around sugar. And I feel like they are responsible for that. And even though they're dead, their statement was crap. And that is my thought.
Just say maybe to sugar. Don't say yes. Don't say no. See, I'm
Only on the
torn.
weekends.
Only on weekend. There you have it.
Only say yes
on
to sugar on the
weekends.
weekends.
No, I pretty much agree with what you guys said. You know, that right is right and wrong is wrong, and that was just wrong for. I mean, just for a buck. I mean, I'm sure it was more
Several
than a buck.
bucks.
Yeah, but
Several
still,
bucks.
when you compare the amount of money that this man made to the amount of lives that this affected,
I don't think
But they
you
don't
care.
get care.
I mean,
they
I know
only
that
see
he
the
doesn't
dollar amount.
care, but us moral people, we do care.
Hey,
So-
hey for morality.
Hell has a special place for him.
He's
Hell
probably
is a hot, hot.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe. Have a conversation with your family. See if you can get on the same page.
And if not the same page, at least the same chapter.
And if not the same chapter, go eat some sweets.
Maybe don't do that
No,
one.
don't do that. Don't do that.